I think it had to be done. It recently dawned on me that some of you people watching these videos, I see you in the YouTube analytics, were born in the year 2000 and beyond. And whilst that's fine and somewhat terrifying if you were born in the 1990s or 1980s, some of you are in your 20s, and some of you have never played Modern Warfare 2. There is an entire generation of people who never experienced the bliss of finishing school or work, going home, turning on your Xbox 360, and playing Modern Warfare 2. And with that in mind, there are loads of you who have never experienced some of these maps, which are absolutely awful in some places, and in other places, absolutely incredible. So today I took it upon myself to download Modern Warfare 2 2009 and rank the maps from best to worst. Now it's worth mentioning, all of these maps are coming to Modern Warfare 3. Every single one of the 2009 maps will be featured, but all of them are going to be remastered. So this ranking could completely change. A map that I think is terrible now could end up being kind of really good. So join me in a nostalgic trip to 2009, where Modern Warfare 2 had taken over the world like some kind of crazy infection, and everybody was playing this game. And depending on how the remasters go, the maps that are incredible now could still be the best maps of 2023. The first is Afghan, which is well known for its memorable sniping spots and generally a lot of trick shotting. I think this is more of a B tier map though. Whilst Afghan was a good looking map and had some nice qualities to it, it actually wasn't that great to play. Next is Derail, and this was a really hard map to read the flow of gameplay. It had a lot of cover, which was really surprising for a game in 2009, but it just didn't flow very well as a map. And I think this is going to be a C tier map for me. However, I will say that this probably has one of the most potentials to be a well done remastered map. This next one's a very controversial take, and that is Estate. And I'm putting Estate in A tier. I don't care what people say. I don't care if people thought it was a bad map. And honestly, it was a bad map, but it was a fun map. Even if it was very poorly designed in terms of balance, I think Estate is a fun map, and I can't wait to see what they do with it in Modern Warfare 3. Favela isn't really even a question. That is an instant S tier map. Not only did it flow well, it looked great. It has memorable moments for me. It was a great third-person map as well, which people forget existed in Modern Warfare 2 in 2009. And this was just a pure S tier map across the board. I'm going to pretend I got the jump up to Highrise done on the first go, but it actually took me something closer to 4 or 5. But Highrise is an A tier map for me. I really liked it. Not only was it super balanced and flowed really well, all of these cool little jump up spots and sniping spots on the various cranes and areas that you could go to was kind of a big win for me. I don't know why, but I've always really liked Highrise, and I actually think that the version of it in Warzone doesn't do it enough justice for how much fun it was. Invasion was another one of those maps where it was really close to being good, but was a little bit unreadable at times. And I think this goes into the C tier again for me. Invasion could be really good if they remaster it in the right way, but in Modern Warfare 2, there was just so many angles and it didn't flow very well due to the layout. So another map that could be great if they redesign it, but in its past, I think most people avoided it. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that Karachi was actually a half-decent map, and I don't really know why, but for whatever reason, for me, it just sort of ticked a mental box. I think it flowed quite well and had some good characteristics to it, and for that reason, I'm going to put it in B tier. I think some people will definitely disagree with that. I know Karachi was a bit of a mixed bag for most people, but for me, it just seemed to be pretty decent. This might be a very controversial opinion, but I'm putting Quarry in D tier. I did not like Quarry at all. I thought it was a map that was super unreadable, had loads of angles. It just didn't, I didn't find it a fun map. And I also disliked the fact that it looked more like maneuverable than it actually was. Like, it looks like you can get around Quarry a lot, but back in 2009, you definitely couldn't. It was a very linear map with very linear alleyways and pathways. And whilst it did have its moments, I think it just was never really a map for me. This is another super controversial opinion from me, but I am putting Rundown in A tier. I actually think Rundown was a really great map that was super underestimated and undervalued. It wasn't the most balanced map in the world, but I think it had a really good characteristic and atmosphere to it. And I also just think some of the gunfights you got into in Rundown were actually some of the most interesting, because it was kind of building to building, alleyway to alleyway, and there was a nice sort of spread out between the 3 lanes across the individual bridges and then the actual riverfront itself, so I was a big fan. I'm giving it an A. Rust is without a shadow of a doubt an S tier map. It's not even a question in my mind where that goes. And the thing about Rust is that it never did anything special, and it didn't need to be, because it was the home of every 1v1 with your friends, every 2v2, any little scrap you had or personal beef was solved in Rust, and I hope that that never changes. Scrapyard for me is gonna go to A tier, and again, that might be controversial to some. I know Scrapyard wasn't always a super loved map, but I actually liked it. It was very simple, it had a very simple lane system. I actually think Scrapyard in the original Warzone on Verdansk was also pretty incredible. Like, I had a lot of fun in that area of the map. And I just feel like Scrapyard was the home of Mike Myers to some extent. Like, I feel like I played a lot of Mike Myers on Scrapyard specifically, and for that reason I've always had good memories of it. I was never really a fan of Skid Row, and I know some people were, but it just wasn't really a map for me. And for that reason, Skid Row to me is another C tier map. It is a map that hypothetically, I think with a remaster, could be very good. I know the alleyway fights, especially around the left side and the top section of the map through the different buildings, were actually a lot of fun. It was kind of like room to room. But for me personally, I just never really enjoyed the flow of the map. But I do think it has buckets of potential. In fact, pretty much all of these maps that I'm voting into the C and D tier have huge potential. I'm going to be controversial here and give Subbase an S tier. And the only reason for this is Subbase is where I got my first nuke in Modern Warfare 2 in 2009. There was just something about this map and me. It just clicked in my head. The flow of the map just made sense in my head. And I loved it. I loved Subbase. And I know other people are going to think I'm deranged for that statement. I know Subbase was a very easily to be spawn-trapped map. But for me, I just thought it was grand. Terminal, 100% S tier. Like, it's such a great map, and honestly, very ahead of its time. I think Terminal was one of the first maps in Modern Warfare 2, and just Call of Duty generally, that felt like it had separated itself into very distinct areas. You had the outdoor area around the plane and the plane itself, which was kind of its own fighting ground. You had the long corridor between the 2 main sections of the airport that was its own fight, and then you had the back area with all the flanking routes. And I honestly just felt that it was such a well thought out and well flowed map that it was almost irreplaceable. And I think lots of Mike Myers and Infected games were so memorable here. I did try to do the doorway jump up, In my head, I thought I'd remembered exactly how to do it. You know, you look between the bolts, you jump up, then you have to strafe back and jump onto the door. When you get to the door, you strafe jump onto the top, and then you can go up the wing. I hadn't, it had been so long. The muscle memory was all gone. It took me far too long to try and do it. And all of those numerous memories of Mike Myers and zombies and infected, all of those modes just instantly disappeared from my head when I was trying to do this. But it's an incredible map, and I'm glad we're seeing it return again. These last two maps of mine are both going in D tier. However, I think these are two maps that have the most potential out of all of the ones I've listed to be really cool. And that's Underpass and Wasteland. Now, Underpass I felt always had a great little atmospheric vibe to it, but there was just no real flow of gameplay. I think a lot of the problem with Underpass and Estate especially was that there was a tall part of the map that was very high up, and then a part of the map that was very low down. And it never really worked in terms of the flow of gameplay. And the other is Wasteland, which of course was just a great open field that was a field day for sniper rifles. I was never a big fan of either of these maps. I felt like they flowed really badly. But, you know, I can see the potential here. I think Underpass has the opportunity to have all of these little, you know, nooks and crannies and flanking routes in a remastered variant that would make it really fun and interesting. And Wasteland, with a couple of like trench situations and a couple of trenches running throughout the open field, more than what they already had, that could also be a very good map. So lots of buckets of potential in these, but for me, it just had to be a D tier map. And that's my list for the rankings. There are some very controversial takes in here, but I think most people would agree with me that Modern Warfare 2 was very subjective. There are certain maps like Favela and Terminal and Rust where I think it's very much a universal this was incredible. Some people would even argue that Afghan was an incredible map. But I think so much of it is just down to the experiences you remember from playing it, whether it was just doing something cool on one of those maps like the jump ups in Highrise, or like, you know, those burned in memories of playing Infected on Modern Warfare 2 in Terminal and trying to get on top of the plane so that you didn't end up on the other team, and all those Mike Myers sessions as well. That is kind of what made those maps special for some people, and I'm certain everybody's going to have that kind of take. The list is on screen with S, A, B, C, D, and I've even pinned the maps in the comment section below, and I really want to see how you guys rank them too. So show me that in the comment section, drop a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.